The torchlight barely penetrates the underground chamber, where 7 women have gathered in absolute silence. Their shadows dance against limestone walls carved with symbols that predate Rome itself. Spirals, crescents, vessels overflowing with grain. Tonight, in this hidden sanctuary beneath the Aventine Hill, they will perform a ceremony that the Senate has forbidden, that husbands fear, that history will deliberately forget. The bride stood alone, marked only by the crimson cord bound to her left wrist. Her breath came shallow as the eldest priestess advanced, obsidian blade catching the firelight. After tonight, she would belong to no one, bound by name and oath alone, walking a path chosen long before she understood its cost. 3,000 years before Rome built its first temple, the women of central Italy gathered in caves to honor the earth goddess, whose name translates simply as the good. These weren't celebrations of harvest or fertility in the ways men later imagined. The rites involved teaching, the properties of silphium for preventing conception, the angles of the body that granted pleasure without pregnancy, the legal formulae that protected a woman's inherited land from a husband's creditors. When the first Latins established settlements on the 7 hills, they found these networks already ancient and organized. The goddess Bona Dea absorbed dozens of local names, Fauna, Damia, Maesta, but her core function remained unchanged. She presided over mysteries that granted women knowledge, autonomy, and most dangerous of all, choice. Men were forbidden from these gatherings under penalty of blinding, and not for mystical reasons. The exclusion was practical. What women learned in Bona Dea's sanctuaries threatened the fundamental architecture of Roman marriage, which existed to transfer property between male-controlled families, using women as vessels. The midnight ritual begins with purification in water, mixed with myrrh and wine. The bride's hair is unbound and combed with a silver comb, while the priestesses chant in a language that contains no Latin, older words, from Etruscan roots, invoking protection and secrecy. Each woman present has undergone this same ceremony, creating bonds stronger than blood, enforceable through their own shadow legal system. The sacred cave on the Aventine Hill holds specific power tonight. Its walls glisten with moisture, and somewhere in the darkness, water drips with metronomic precision. The groom waits outside, permitted to approach only when summoned. He knows he participates in something technically illegal since the senatorial decree of 62 BCE, but his family's women have insisted, and he loves his bride enough to trust her in this strangeness. The obsidian blade opens a small cut on the bride's inner forearm. Her blood drips into a bronze bowl already containing wine, milk, and the blood of the 6 witnesses. The eldest priestess mixes it with a laurel branch, speaking the binding words, "By blood shared, by witness sworn, by Bona Dea's ancient law." This woman retains her father's name, her mother's property, her body's sovereignty. Now comes the element that Christian chroniclers would later describe as unspeakable depravity. The groom enters, also naked, also wearing a crimson cord. The couple performs the sexual act on a stone altar while the priestesses observe, not in prurience, but in legal witnessing. They note the bride's consent given freely, her pleasure unmarred by force, the physical proof that she enters this marriage as an autonomous being, not property transferred. Roman families sought this ritual for daughters they cherished beyond political advantage. A girl married under Bona Dea's rites could not be divorced without her consent. Her dowry remained legally hers, managed by a trustee from her mother's line. If widowed, she inherited directly rather than reverting to her father's household. Most subversively, she gained access to contraceptive knowledge, controlling if and when she bore children. The female networks operating these ceremonies functioned as parallel governance structures. They maintained their own records, their own dispute resolution, their own enforcement mechanisms. A man who violated the terms of a Bona Dea marriage might find his business partnerships mysteriously dissolving, his loans called in early, his political ambitions sabotaged by whispers in the right households. The economic implications terrified Rome's ruling class. Women controlling their own wealth could fund each other's ventures, arrange marriages for love rather than alliance, even choose not to marry at all. The ritual represented everything the patriarchy worked to prevent. Female solidarity, translating into material power. In December of 62 BCE, a young patrician named Publius Clodius Pulcher made a catastrophic mistake. Disguised as a female musician, he infiltrated the annual Bona Dea festival held in Julius Caesar's house, hoping to seduce Caesar's wife Pompeia. His discovery caused a scandal that ricocheted through every level of Roman society. Clodius's violation wasn't sexual. He never reached Pompeia. His crime was witnessing what men were forbidden to see, the actual mechanics of female power. The scrolls recording marriages, property transfers, legal agreements binding without male oversight. The Senate, terrified of what Clodius might reveal, prosecuted him for sacrilege, but the damage was done. Conservative senators seized the moment to legislate against secret women's rights. New laws required all marriages to follow strict patriarchal forms. Temple records became subject to state inspection. Gathering in female-only religious contexts required official permits. The machinery of suppression ground into motion, slow but inexorable. When Christianity became Rome's official religion in 380 CE, the persecution intensified into extermination. The new faith offered its own female submission theology, rendering Bona Dea's autonomous marriages heretical twice over. Once against Roman law, once against God. Imperial troops raided sanctuaries from Britain to Syria, burning scrolls that documented 3,000 years of women's alternative legal structures. The Aventine sanctuary was sealed with concrete and consecrated as a church. Priestesses who refused conversion were executed as witches, their knowledge dying with them. In rural Campania, the ritual survived in modified form until at least 380 CE, practiced in secret by midwives and grandmothers. But the unbroken chain of transmission finally shattered. Christian chroniclers who mentioned the rites at all described them as orgies, deliberate mischaracterization designed to justify their destruction. They couldn't acknowledge the truth that these ceremonies created marriages where women retained personhood, agency, the radical notion that a wife might also be a full human being. Rome buried this history because it exposed the violence underlying traditional marriage. If women could marry with autonomy preserved, it proved that patriarchal marriage required women's subjugation not by nature, but by force. The secret had to be forgotten, because remembering it meant admitting that every conventional Roman marriage involved a theft of name, property, body, choice. The ritual's erasure succeeded so completely that modern scholars dismissed scattered references as myth until archaeological discoveries at Pompeii's House of Mysteries revealed frescoes depicting female-only ceremonies with clear legal and sexual dimensions. The evidence was always there, buried under centuries of deliberate silence. If this hidden history revealed something you never learned in any classroom, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories that power tried to erase, and tell me in the comments what other forgotten truths you want uncovered. The past holds more secrets than we've been taught to imagine.